What is up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. As you can see, we are in a different venue than we usually are. As promised, we are going to be on a 2-upload schedule for the next few weeks. I'm going to be starting a series to help you guys get in match and competitive shape, and that's going to be taking place in the gym as well as on the court. But for the first few videos, we're going to be focusing primarily in this space here. I'm also going to be running through variations based on what you have available. So if you don't have a gym and you only have resistance bands or weights, I'm going to be covering those things as well. All the stuff we're doing is to help you guys get ready to jump on court and feel competitively ready. You want to make sure that your body's in top shape, that you're in good condition for injury prevention as well as endurance. And that's what a lot of us really don't put as much emphasis on when we start practicing to get ready for matches. We think we have to get our strokes ready, which we do have to do, but there's a lot of other things that make it so that you can play a full season of USTA 4.0, 4.5, 5.0, or high school season or college season that's coming up. So in this video and in this series, we're going to be prioritizing getting you guys physically ready to be on court for the long haul. Let's get started. So the format we're going to be following to get you guys in shape is going to be broken into 3 sections in each video. We have power, we have strength, and we have flexibility. A lot of you guys might be thinking power and strength are the same thing, but they're actually not. And I'm going to be going into detail on what makes strength trained versus what makes power trained. Flexibility is pretty obvious. It's the range of motions that you have available within certain joints and in certain movements. So when we start these different things, I'm always going to highlight what category each one of these things falls into, and then you can take and mix and match the different variations that you want to use. I'm only going to cover 2 to 3 in each video, and then you can take from that category across the set of videos, and you'll be able to use flexibility-specific exercises, strength-specific exercises, or power-specific exercises to tailor it to what you feel like you need to be working on. I'm going to give you guys a lot of different things to choose from, and then you can tailor it to your specific needs. First one we're going to be getting into, as you should always start with, is your flexibility. You want to go through a good solid warm-up on whatever the muscle or whatever the joint is that you're going to be training, and flexibility is where you start. You want to make sure that everything you're going to train throughout the day in the gym is primed and ready. So for example, if I was going to do a shoulder workout in the gym, whether it's shoulder presses or lateral raises or things like that, I need to prime that joint through a couple of different range of motion exercises, whether it's with resistance bands or anything like that. So today I'm going to be focusing on the upper body for my flexibility, my strength, and my power. Next week, we're going to go into some of the lower body stuff, and then we'll go into some core stuff as well. I'm going to kind of run through a cycle. So let's get right into the upper body. So the first thing I'm going to be doing is going through range of motion with the resistance band and my shoulder. Everything that I'm going to do on my right arm, assume that I'm doing on my left arm as well. But you can do these with a very light resistance band. I don't recommend having any crazy weight to it because you're warming up, you're not actually working out yet. So the first thing I'm doing is with a light resistance, I'm just going through a resisted forward press. I'm obviously not working on pushing forward, but I'm working on being able to support the weight upward as I'm going through this range. This is a good first way to warm up the shoulder. Again, this is not heavy. I don't really feel like I'm being yanked down like this. It's just creating enough resistance to really engage the muscle. And you want to go through about 8 to 10 in each direction, and then really kind of just work around the different areas. Also make sure that you flip your arm over because it engages the pec as well as the shoulder a little bit differently in those areas. Then add in the rotation of the shoulder. Tennis is a very shoulder damaging and shoulder straining workout when you're working on court constantly. So you always want to make sure these muscles are really worked in so that you're pretty much just ready to put it through the stresses of what happens on the court. So again, I'm just running through shortened versions of it. I've already done this whole warm up already, just going through and showing you guys what the different exercises would be. But you want to spend about a good 5 minutes or so going through just this banded workout and this just banded resistance piece right here, just so that you're able to flow through these things and get right into the training portion that's on the court. And as I said, I'm also only working on the shoulders and the upper body today. We'll be getting into the other stuff a little bit later. But really, just make sure that this thing is really prioritized. A lot of people have this tendency of wanting to just skip through this stuff and get to lifting weights and doing things that are intense. And that's exactly how you can shorten the lifespan that you have on the court. Give more attention to the rehab and the preventative stuff rather than the strengthening stuff. Last variation would be doing stuff in the backwards range. So all the stuff you saw me doing, I'm also doing while resisting, have my shoulder resisted, moving backwards, as well as having the resistance pulled down. Because again, if you're a one-handed backhand, for example, there's a lot of opening of the shoulder, and there's also a lot of pulling of those muscles to get your racket set and in position. So everybody always thinks about what has to go forward. The backwards muscles also have to be engaged. So again, we go just 8 to 10 reps of these different ranges going forward as well as backwards. That way, when we jump on the court, we're able to really engage those muscles and they're already primed and ready to fire at a good speed. Just make sure that you give respect to when you feel little twinges as well. So if, for example, my shoulder just popped a little bit, I want to spend a little more time in that range to really get everything kind of loosened up before I put any real resistance or weight on it. So one of the first exercises I like to do for flexibility, which this falls into, is a medicine ball roll while laying down. So the ball that I'm using weighs about 8 pounds, nothing super heavy, but it does take a little bit of energy to move. You want to lay flat and put your hand on the ball. This is going to stretch the shoulder upward. And as you're rolling this ball back and forth with that little bit of weight, you're still encountering a little bit of resistance, but your shoulder's in a what I call semi-compromised position because my shoulder is strongest in front of me, but I'm stretching it backwards. So with my shoulder stretched backwards, I'm just kind of running through a little bit of tension while moving this ball back and forward. A lot of people will put their shoulders in the strongest positions and train those areas, but we don't get injured very often in our strongest positions. We get injured in our positions where our muscles are compromised or our joints are compromised. So you want to get your body kind of used to being in those ranges as well. You want to do this about 8 to 10 times before switching to the other side and doing the same thing. And again, the ball isn't super heavy, but there's just enough resistance that I can feel my shoulder stretching as I try to move the ball. You can also take this and move it out to the side. Again, try to keep your chest as close to the ground as possible and pull in towards the shoulder blade and then stretching that arm out. But the main point here is putting that shoulder in what we call semi-compromised positions and still being able to feel comfortable in those ranges. That way the body doesn't tighten up when it feels like there's a threat to injury. It has the ability to relax in those ranges, which will allow you to perform a little bit more loose under physical pressure. Keeping with the same concept, now I have a weight in my hand. This is only 8 pounds. Again, go with whatever fits for you. You're going to put yourself in that exact same position, but you're going to go through those ranges trying to keep this weight off the floor, which means you now have to really engage the muscles in the shoulder and keep everything supported. You'll feel a lot of more tightness in the core and a lot more tightness in those muscles because you lose your leverage as you push away from your body. So the muscles in the back are going to tighten up more. Obviously, the muscles in the shoulder are going to tighten up more as well. But again, we're trying to have our body not panic as we go through those ranges and as we go through those positions where we can feel ourselves in kind of a compromised position. And trust me, 8 pounds to 10 pounds is plenty, even for the most high performance athletes. So if you're somebody who's more of a recreational player, you're better off using 2 to 5 pounds to get started and just really getting the feeling of holding that shoulder up off the ground and engaging the back of the deltoid so that those muscles get used to firing and supporting. Sticking with the same concept here, we're going to just roll our shoulders back, let it stretch a little bit, and then bring it back up. This is a very dangerous exercise to do with any type of heavy weight. I've seen people hurt themselves. Go with a 5 to 8 pound at the most. Allow your shoulder to rotate away and then bring it back up. So again, we're still in that flexibility part right now, but we're also strengthening the muscles inside the rotation of the shoulder. which again, as a tennis player, these are some of the most easily damaged muscles because we're doing so much high torque exercise. So you want to really make sure that you're engaging these muscles as well. And this is partially a strengthening exercise because this isn't a lift that you would usually do in the gym consistently, but those muscles really need to be trained to support rotational mass as well as just getting used to that stretched position that we find ourselves getting put into. For example, when we go to hit that forehand, that arm really opens up and then we've got to pull it back in. So same thing here. I'm going to adjust the weight now and we're just going to go slightly down. Don't go the same distance that we stretched on the forehand, on the top when we went way back here. Shoulders built to stretch this way more. So we want to go from, if this was 90, we only need to go about 45 and then pull it back up. 45 and then pull it back up. And again, make sure you're picking a weight that's appropriate to you. But this is going to go a really long way in terms of having good muscular endurance because it's the small muscles that tend to give out first, and those are the ones that are easily injured. Yeah, our bicep and our core do a lot of the lifting, but we're going to hurt our wrist or we're going to hurt the rotator cuff because those are the supporting muscles that do a lot of the lifting in the background. So again, just go 8 to 10 reps, both ranges. And the last thing you want to do, this one doesn't have to be as long, just do 1 or 2 just to open up the range of the chest. Since we've done so much in the stretching of the back, we also want to do the stretching in the front. But that will complete our warm-up of the upper body and the flexibility portions for today. Let's get into strength. So as you can see, I'm sitting next to a bench press. I'm not going to be bench pressing for the workout. I'm going to use the bench press as an illustration for the difference between strength and power. Strength is the amount of weight that you're able to move at any given time. So you'll hear somebody ask how strong they are and their bench press is like 405 or they're squatting 600 pounds or whatever the impressive numbers are. Strength is only half of what power is. Strength is a measurement, but power has multiple factors. So if I was to use this bar, for example, this bar is only 45 pounds. And regardless of how strong or weak you may feel like you are, your strength is not measured. Your strength is measured by how much you can move. So if I can only move a 45-pound bar, this is how strong I am. I'm strong enough to do this weight right here. However, power is how much force you can exert in a measured amount of time. So if I'm strong enough to move 45, my power might still not have a lot of output. It might take me a while to get this 45-pound bar up. Or if I have a lot of power, I can get it up quickly. Tennis players have to measure their power output more than their strength because tennis is a very explosive sport. So being able to get this weight up quickly is way more impressive and important for a tennis player than it is for another sport like football or soccer. Whereas for football, you need to be able to really move a lot of weight. Tennis is all about how quickly you can get that weight to move. So when we train our strength, we're always training our strength in conjunction with our power because we are explosive athletes. So how much you can squat is great. How much you can jump squat is more important because you need to be able to move a lot of energy at a short amount of time. So everything we do with the strength is going to be then tabulated or calculated over to how much power output we have. So let's get into our strength, but just know that everything we're doing in the strength, we're then going to have a power component to see how useful it actually is. So in the interest of keeping things consistent, I'm going to use these 20-pound weights, which I used for my workout earlier today. I'm going to be doing lateral raises because I wanted to go through these ranges to help me with my backhand strength. My backhand is a one-handed backhand, so I need to be able to really get my shoulders to come up or open up at any given time. So I will do probably 8 to 10 of these just up and through, and make sure that you are controlling the range. You also don't want to have your back rocking back and forth. You want to make sure that everything stays nice and tight, and the only thing that moves is the weight. You don't have to pick up 20 pounds. If you're training your shoulders for tennis, again, as I said, strength is only part of the equation. You want to have high power output. You don't necessarily have to be strong enough to move heavy weight. You need to be having enough power to move that weight quickly. A good example, as I do these exercises, would be somebody like Roger Federer. Roger Federer is not as big as I am. I weigh about 185 pounds, and I'm pretty solid in terms of muscular build. Roger Federer, by comparison, is pretty lean in comparison to somebody like me. However, I could easily say that Roger Federer can probably hit the ball harder than I can in a lot of different scenarios. Obviously, he's a little older than me now, but the point still remains that, I could assume that if me and him went to the gym, I could probably outlift him. What that shows you is that strength doesn't inherently mean that you're going to be able to hit the ball harder or faster or with more spin. So I'm going to change the angle now. I lifted my shoulders up. I'm just going to lean back a little bit so I can pull my shoulders backwards, which is a little more important for the one-handed backhand, but concept is still the same of just being able to open up the shoulders through the range of motion as if I was actually going to hit that shot. So now I've switched to a lighter weight. This is the 8-pound weight that you saw me doing during the warm-up. Here's where I'm going to measure that power. I'm going to give myself a 20-second window to do as many reps as I can, which means I have to have a higher output of speed in order to move this weight. Whereas when you saw me with the 20-pound weights, I was kind of really controlling through the range. Now what I want to do is still control through the range, but I want to see how quickly I can get through these exercises to be able to measure how much power my muscle is able to contract and exert. So what I would do is I'd give myself about 20 seconds. I can look at the clock behind this camera and look at it, but I would just start counting and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That wasn't 20 seconds, but the point is I'm trying to rep out as much as I can and maintain muscular speed through these exercises. Again, you don't do this with the weight that you were measuring your strength with. You really need to drop that weight a lot so that you don't do damage to the tendons and the muscles trying to move them faster. You can build up in weight, but at a certain point, it doesn't make sense to be trying to go super fast with a heavy weight. Look at me. I'm pretty strong, but I'm moving 8-pound weights. But I'm measuring how quickly I can get that range completed so that I know that if I was hitting a ball with my racket, I have the ability to really exert a lot of acceleration through. Same way as if I was standing here, I can bring that racket out very quickly through a backhand. What I would do now, since I've ranged through the back of the shoulder, is I would then go and do something through the front of the shoulder similar to a forehand, which I'm going to do now. So now I am at the functional trainer. If you don't have a functional trainer, you could do this lying on a bench with free weights. I prefer the functional trainer because there's no weight pulling me beyond what I'm comfortable with. Wherever I stand is as far as this machine can pull me. But if you don't have this machine available, laying on a bench and using free weights will work. So I'm going to be just doing a simple chest fly, which opens up the chest and then contracts back in. What this is good for, as I assume that you guys could figure out, is the contraction that you would use for the forehand. Now, I'm pushing about 40 pounds here, so obviously this would be me measuring my strength, not my power. You want to really have enough strength in the muscle to be able to move certain amounts of weight, and again, you train your way up. But at a certain point, tennis players don't need to get super bulky, so train relative to what your goals are. Remember, we're trying to get match ready. I always say when you're doing these things, you want to do 8 to 10 reps maximum because you're not going for mass gaining as a tennis athlete, unless that's your goal. But I'm assuming that you're just trying to get everything primed and ready. Again, we work the range of the shoulder backwards, and now we work in the range of the shoulder forwards, working the pec and working the muscles that would be engaged a lot for that forehand. Switching from strength to power, I would drop this weight. So I'm going from 40 to 20. 40 to 20. Lighter, easier for me to move. My goal again would be to look at a clock and look at the output, meaning can I get this weight to move quickly into these positions in a safe manner? If you feel anything straining, that means that your power is not high enough to move this weight. So you would drop the weight to a position where you feel like you can go through the range quickly without any hindrance in the joints or the mobility. If the weight is too high and you feel like your power is low because of that, that means you're pushing too much weight to measure your power. So as you can see, now that I've put it down to 20 pounds, I'm able to run through really quickly and comfortably, and my speed's staying the same. That means my power output is clean at this weight. And over time, you build up. Measure your strength, increase your strength. Measure your power, increase your power over time. You do not need strength for power. If I can move 100 pounds, that doesn't mean I can move 10 pounds fast. It might, but it does not assume it. There are some people who have a lot of strength, but as you've seen, their flexibility is very limited. They can't even reach behind and touch their back, or they can't reach and put both their hands together. So as strong as they are, their power output is probably limited because the range of motion has been limited, so you can't get things to move as far. And if you can't get things to move as far, then your power is drastically limited. So take somebody that's a bodybuilder, put them on a tennis court, their range is going to be so tight that as strong as they are, they can't take any of that power and exert it through a forehand or backhand like a tennis player would be able to. So you take somebody that's really strong, put them on a tennis court, they might only be able to serve 40, 50 miles an hour, where somebody like me can serve 120, 130 miles an hour just by having the flexibility to exert my power versus just my strength. Hopefully that was a good intro to how these things are going to be functioning. I did a lot of explaining in this video, and I want to kind of just go through how the things are going to work in the next videos that are coming up. But the explanations happened here, so I don't have to talk as much. Again, we're going to be going through flexibility, power, and strength. Everything we did today was in the upper body, trying to get everything primed. We will be getting into other ranges of motion, other body parts, other useful ways to train those things for those specific goals of flexibility, strength, and power in the next videos. But hopefully you guys found it helpful. And if you know anybody that will benefit from it, send it off to them. But I'll catch you guys next Thursday in the next one.